The administration has highlighted a number of times that this is a very complicated issue with legitimate and important perspectives on both sides of the issue. We do have law enforcement concerns and the need to access data from malicious adversaries, whether they be terrorists or criminals, to deter and catch those individuals responsible for malicious actions. At the same time, from a cybersecurity perspective, we want more broad and secure encryption and other technologies to be widely disseminated. I would reflect the administration's position here that we do need a national conversation on this issue, and I think it's important that Congress has taken this issue up and is focused on it.
All right, all right. Mr. Barger, do you have a take on that?
So, the encryption, issue is a very, very complicated subject. I would encourage, the government to consider, how, they should be able to conduct investigations in striking a balance between privacy and also the need. So
we see that in the case of the San Bernardino terrorist's iPhone, that the FBI hired a hacker to break into, and the FBI won't tell us how they did it. Haven't they discovered a cyber vulnerability in iPhones that needs to be disclosed so it can be patched?
Well, I don't necessarily know the situation, the sources and methods in which they apply to that, but it seems that they've found a creative workaround to the environmental conditions in which they were forced to operate and have been able to carry their investigation forward. Whether or not that was used with a specific vulnerability, I wouldn't know.
All right, let's shift a little bit here to the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, and since DHS is kind of the hub, as you say, for that, what kind of success are we having in that? Are you tracking whether or not how many attacks have been shared that way, and whether companies are actually applying the information that's being shared there? Do we have some numbers on any successes or failures there? Yeah, Mr. Osment, that's clearly in your alley.
Thank you, Representative. We have, as you know, the Congress passed this act in December of 2015 and gave DHS some fairly aggressive deadlines. I'm proud to report that we did meet those deadlines, and the system, the Secretary of Homeland Security formally certified that the system was live on March 17th of this year. We will grow this system incrementally. We are not going to reach all of the American economy in just a few months. I'm very happy with our rate of growth to date. We have 14 non-federal entities currently connected to our server, and 82 who are in the process of connecting the server, who have signed our terms of use. So there's clearly an interest in doing this. It does require the other participant to build some IT infrastructure on their side. So it's like we've built a phone system and we have a phone. They also have to acquire a phone before they can call.
All right, so you've been up and going a month now. Is that correct?
That's right.
Roughly a month. So have there been any threats shared? I mean, do you have a number?
We have shared over 2,000 indicators to the private sector. And we have received additional indicators that the private sector did not allow us to share onward to other companies, but that we did share internally within the Federal Government. It is important to note that an indicator does not equal an incident. And so a company or a government agency can learn about an indicator from a failed attack just as successfully, just as they can learn from a successful attack. So these do not all represent incidents. They represent be on the lookout for this bad guy activity.
And one of the big concerns with the Act was the sharing of personally identifiable information. How much personally identifiable information are we seeing coming and going with this?
We have not. We have multiple layers of protection to protect privacy. First, companies are required to vet what they share themselves. We have some automated mechanisms to prevent inappropriate or incorrect information from being shared, and then there are a few types of information that would require human review. The way that we block in an automated way inappropriate information from being shared is that we just don't accept it. so it's not even possible to send it to us. So I can't tell you how many of those blocks have occurred. I can tell you that our human review has not identified any inappropriate information to my knowledge.
I'll dive into this a little bit deeper if we get a second round of questioning. I see my time has expired. We talked about some of the legacy and unsupported systems in the IRS. We've had hearings where various government agencies are still running pre-Windows 98 or Windows 98, again, not supported by Microsoft. The security patches are not coming out. Dr. Osment, do you have any idea the scope of this problem?
I think this is a major problem for the Federal Government. It's something that is concerning to me. I'll tell you that we do scan agencies externally, so the systems they have connected to the Internet, and we look for critical vulnerabilities. We do consider an unsupported device to be a critical vulnerability. And some of our most challenging discoveries in that process are unsupported devices, particularly at smaller departments and agencies who may lack the resources or the expertise to upgrade these, very legacy systems. I think this is a major risk for the government. And, I do believe that any approach that we can take to upgrading and replacing legacy systems is a good approach.
And the National Institute of Standards publication 800-40 lays out guidance for agencies on enterprise patch management and states that it would be quote, ideal to deploy patches immediately so as to minimize the time frame systems are vulnerable. Obviously, immediately isn't possible, but we've got a couple. We've got the State Department and Treasury Department here. How good are you guys at getting this out? I mean, what is immediately for you? A security patch comes out, how long does it take you to get it out, Mr. Taylor?
So our security patches, we look at it two ways: critical threat patches and just typical required patches. So for our critical patches, we begin immediately. I want to be clear about that. But we have a 3-day timeline to deploy a patch worldwide, to all locations worldwide. We meet that with approximately 98% success rate.
And how are y'all doing at Treasury?
We obviously take the most critical patches first, sir, and we move on it. And as you saw in my testimony, we fix those in 5 days, 6 days. For the rest of the enterprise, we work with the bureaus to make sure those critical patches go first. As far as the medium and low patches, they take a little bit more time, and we also are obviously always looking at operational risk, making sure those systems are continuing mission, and then we schedule that, and then the bureau CIOs report back to us. So the answer is it's ongoing. As to exact numbers, I can get back to you and give you the exact numbers by percent.
All right, and Dr. Osment, in May of 2015, it's my understanding that the Secretary issued binding operational directives requiring all agencies to mitigate critical vulnerabilities on their Internet-facing devices within 30 days. That seems like an awful long time to me, but before I go criticizing how long it is, how much success do we have getting them done in 30 days?
I would agree with you that it is a somewhat generous amount of time. I would highlight that to the points that my colleagues have made, you have to, the criticality of the patch and the type of system will dictate timing. There are systems that are more complicated than your normal desktop operating system that do take additional time, and since we were doing a one-size-fits-all policy, we had to be somewhat generous. Even with that somewhat generous time frame, when we released this directive, there were over 360 Internet-facing systems with critical vulnerabilities in them. I view that as the backlog, what we started with, because of course new vulnerabilities are discovered all the time, and so we reduced that backlog not as rapidly as I would like for the government to have reduced it, but we are now down, we have obviously eliminated that backlog. Even right now, we have 39 vulnerabilities across the government that are critical but have been unpatched for more than 30 days. There is good news in that, which is when we started, we were over 360, and clearly not enough attention was being paid on it. There's very bad news
I mean, are
on
these
that.
some obscure operating system or, ultra-complicated software, or are we just, not running Windows Update?
The majority of these are now legacy systems at small agencies that are struggling to manage their IT and to find the budget to replace these legacy systems. These have been the toughest nuts for us to crack.
All right, I'm loath to ask what you think Congress could do to help with that, because I suspect the answer will be give us more money. But is there something besides give us more money that we can do in Congress? And then I'll yield back after your answer.
I would like to highlight that Congress has been incredibly helpful to date. The recent legislation passed in both 2014 and 2015 has been very important. This type of attention is very important. I do think that one of the challenges that agencies consistently have is when you replace a legacy system, you often have to operate that system for a period of time, even as you're paying to build the new system. So you do functionally need to pay for two things at once for a period of time. The IT modernization bill, sponsored in part by Representative Kelly, ranking member, would really assist with that, because it would essentially give you that fund to temporarily support the building of a second system, even as you operate the original older system.
Thank you. I'll yield back.